Nothing of I'm not a professional. There we go. So, a little quick presentation for you today. 10 things I wish someone had told me before we started the dementia journey, and one other little bonus one at the end. That's not, it's a freebie, let's say. It's a freebie. I'll be giving this presentation in West Plains Saturday morning, too, by the way. But it's something I whipped up this week, trying to think of things that kind of highlight some of the most important things. I've been a sporadic caregiver for years. Really, the last 10 of mom's 15 years, I really had a lot of things to learn. She was diagnosed in 2009 with what they called a mild form of dementia. Uh, so many things that we didn't understand about the situation, even though our grandmother had it. She had a disease. 20 years before then. But she was more of a classic case of it when we noticed it. She was advanced in age and stuff. Mom was sharp and athletic, and it was kind of a shock to us. So in many ways, it was like being airlifted into Mongolia with no phone and asked to make my way to Nepal and go through New Guinea while I'm there and figuring this thing out. Really, we were grasping around at straws trying to find the right answers for stuff. We're very thankful for the Alzheimer's Association and for Senior Age for aiding along this way. So my goal with this presentation is just to help you find some useful things for your tool belt. May or may not help. Each of these won't be something you have a gap in, but it was for me. First thing I didn't was not prepared for in Alzheimer's caregiving was how much of an up and down situation it is. You really think along the lines of it like cancer or something where it just kind of gradually gets worse, and I don't know how to put it other than that. There's so much up and down. There's days that are going to be great, and there's days that are terrible. There's days that she was cogent and could carry on a conversation. Then you get your kind of hopes up, like, oh, maybe I've misdiagnosed something here. And then the next day she's back to worse than she was before, and no apparent reason. Just a roller coaster of ups and downs. Every journey is different. I visited the nursing home when my mom was there for 6 years, about 1,000 times. I don't know, between 1,000 and 1,500 times, whole bunch of times. Um, and every day was a unique one. It really was. I would come in some days early to mid stage dementia with mom, and she was be doing pretty sharp. Just other days I come in and she'd be crying loudly, and it just kills you. And you go in, keep in mind, you're going in with your own moods, your own day's baggage, your own thises and that's. And then they clash sometimes. It's hard. It really is. There's some sounds, some smells, some sights I'll never unsee. I just won't. Um, but I'd leave with a big smile a lot of days and feel good about it. And um, one of the little thing about the ups and downs thing is if you can get a little heads up before you show up, it's a good thing. I'll discuss it later, but hospice, palliative hospice, my palliative nurse, I could text her and say, "Hey, how's mom doing today?" "Oh, I just saw her an hour ago. She's real good." You go in with a positive attitude, but you do the same thing, and she said, "Oh, she's just doing terribly." You kind of steel yourself and get ready and everything. So it's good to have a person or a way to get some advance reconnaissance. Another thing, number nine thing I'd like to have known, elder law attorneys are actually law ninjas. Um, no doubt that's true. There's things in the law code that can help you get on Medicaid. So, real quick 101 levels topic here. Nursing homes don't accept money from Medicare for residential life. They cover Medicare. Medicare covers it for rehab, but not for living there. So unless you have a long-term care insurance, unless you're a veteran, or unless you have Medicaid, you're paying out of pocket. And it's generally $200 to $300 a day, just to give it a nice round number. So between six in the real low end and 9 to 10 in the higher end, thousand a month. So you got to have a way to fund this stuff. You can liquidate all they've ever had. It's an option. But I would always recommend talking to an elder law attorney first. They can tell you in advance whether they can or not cannot fix that. I was able to get a stream of income set up with my mom's existing assets to essentially screen it from Medicaid, being able to see it or being able to count it against her, and it made it to where she's eligible. So I paid about 9 to 10,000, and for a whole bunch of trust work, granted, there's a whole bunch of stuff to do. But they were able to have her on Medicaid the entire time she's in the nursing home. So for 8 to 10,000 of paying it, I had um, 72 months of 8,000 a month, 500 some odd thousand. So it was a good investment of my time and energy and finances. Gotta, and all the other things too, the power of attorneys and the all the things about that. It's important to know it yourself. It's also important to have someone in your back pocket that can help. Number eight, palliative hospice isn't only about casseroles. Okay. Uh, when you think of the word hospice, just and some of y'all know this, but I didn't know this. You think of the word hospice, you think, oh, I've called in hospice, and that's when all your friends bring over casseroles and they intensely pray for you, which is always appreciated all the time. They uh, send sad faces. They send my condolences in advance. The person's still alive. I get that. I do the same thing. I love other people too, and it kills me. But um, palliative hospice is another aspect of hospice or of care. It's an added layer of healthcare, basically, that will focus on the quality of life over the quantity of life. That's kind of how I try to explain it. It does not mean they're wanting to shorten your life even a little bit. In fact, my mom lived longer because she was on palliative hospice. I have no doubt. But they like meds. They will usually retool the meds and focus on quality of life again, on things that are comfort related and things that are will help. And if it's something that is hard on their bodies and makes them sick, but maybe make them live a little bit longer, they usually get rid of those. And they'll walk you through all of us and explain all the process up front. But palliative hospice is a layer of care that Medicare covers. It's amazing. They provided for my mom a better bed, a different wheelchair, a better wheelchair, a pastor to come and pray with her, the same person giving her a bath for a lot of the time. Um, Consistency, huge thing. Other hospices have other things too. Some have music therapy, some have a pet therapy, some have this or that. There's just a bunch of features to it, all covered by Medicare. Love my palliative hospice people. I could text her and say, "Hey, how's mom doing?" And she's seen her in the last day or two, and could tell me everything I needed to know. Usually they were there almost every day because they're seeing several people. It's just a blessing. It really is. So when you think of palliative, the word palliative, it's a positive thing, and it's not about giving up. It's about making life better while you got it. Love it. Did not know anything about it. I thought it was casseroles. Number seven, make lists and check them twice. A couple things about lists. Make a list of things that people can do to help you. It's important. Um, because the people are drop in sometimes. Hey, how's your mom doing? Oh, great. Of course, how do you answer that question? That's a separate topic. But doing fine, about the same. How can I help you? Well, if you don't have a list handy, the temptations to think, oh, I don't know, nothing. I don't really need much. Thank you, though. And then they leave, and 5 minutes later, you think of something. Like even little tasks. Life is full of little tasks. It is. We have oodles of things that make up our day, and they don't call the dementia caregiving life the 36-hour day because it's so easy. There is more to get done than you can get done. There is. Have a list. When they come by and say, "Hey, how can I help you?" Well, hey, could you run my electric bill by? Hey, could you um, pick up the walnuts out of my yard? Make a list and use it. Other lists to keep in mind, list of meds. It's important to keep an eye on how many meds are being taken and when they are, how they act afterwards. I kind of kept it, thought of it as like a diary a little bit, to keep track of uh, what time of day. If it started a new med and it was at daytime and it caused issues, talk to the doc. Maybe at night would have been better. I don't know. Who knows? But keep an eye on the meds. Keep a list of things that worked. Um, I can think of 50 ideas with mom, the things we didn't know we tried. Hey, that worked. Um, Pals. She's really stressed when she's still at home, almost time to go to the nursing home. Having some hard times. Um, We discovered that bringing her fresh hot towels out of the dryer to fold was a blessing to her. She could fold them and be able to kind of keep her mind focused on it, and it helped. It would always help, but keep an eye on it and keep a list of things that what happens when or what was happening when something went bad too. A lot of Sherlock Holmes action with your dementia life, trying to get to the root of things. Um, Not always a way to, but if there's a theme, if you have a list, you'll find it. Number six, you can catch more nurses with honey than you can with vinegar. Okay, so nurses are people, very kind, awesome people, big fans of nurses. They hurt when your loved one hurts. I really feel like they do what the good ones do. Some grow cold, I get that, but I think the vast majority of them, if you could catch them in a side room when they weren't right there around you, would tell you it hurts when your loved one hurts. Um, Love them, care for them, bring them gifts, bring them food, be kind to them, offer a lot of grace. They're usually understaffed, they're usually overworked. So do. But the flip side of that is since they're so overworked, and this is a little bit of a hack, vary the times you come. It's okay to come at lunch or dinner or whatever, that's fine. But if you can come a little earlier than normal some days and a little later some, or drop in sometimes, I really feel like you get better care if they don't know when you're for sure coming. I hate to say that, but it's true. And this is a horrible thing to say, but I don't know how to put it other than this. You don't really have to outrun the nursing home bear, so to speak. You just have to be able to outrun the other resident that doesn't have any visitors. Because kind of the squeaky wheel gets the grease, the visible wheel gets the grease with caring for someone in a nursing home. The more you're there, and if you're loving and nice about it, they're gonna be more likely to make sure your loved one's taken care of. And that's a sad thing because that means that someone else isn't going to get taken care of. Try to help them too. Try to find ways that you can encourage them to get helped. Um, but your primary emphasis has to be on your loved one to start with. So that's to me is a little bit of a hack. Number five, community property. See, this is kind of all over the map. Community property. Everything, especially in the memory unit. If you don't know, a memory unit is a lockdown unit for people with dementia that are typically flight risks or elopement risks, as they call it. Um, the property becomes community. You put your name on the shoes and the socks and the underwear and the tops and the whatever, and within a few months, you got other people's stuff that shows up in your drawer. You got your stuff and elsewhere. It's hard to get used to. Food is that way too. You're in dinner time, and they're sitting here eating or with their food right in front of them, and they reach over and start stealing food off their friend's plate. Hard to get your mind wrapped around that because you think, oh, well, if it's a toddler, you wouldn't let that happen. That's not fair. That's being a bully or being not fair, unkind or whatever, or rude. Well, okay, keep this in mind. People with dementia oftentimes have field of processing issues. They can see right in front of them. They can see everywhere, likely. It's not like macular degeneration where they got a hole in their sight. They can see stuff, but the longer they are in the disease, the more they're processing just right there in front of them to the exclusion of everything else. Um, because I think that's probably where the danger would have likely come from. So they're wanting to hyper focus on right there where the most likely danger is. And kind of as a side note, you got to be careful when you walk in a room, especially the longer they've had the disease, that you make eye contact with them. My mom would kind of be bent down a little bit. I'd have to get down kind of on the floor and look up at her and say, "Hey, mom," and kind of announce myself in the room. Once I got eye contact once, she could follow me around and stuff. It was fine, but it wasn't always the case. But with food, they may not even be seeing their food right in front of them. They may be seeing the food out of the corner of their eye, but maybe too low. So sometimes you move your food out farther, it'll hit that field of view where they can see it, or up a little bit further. There's ways you can prop food up in different they have ways you can do that. I'll put it like that. Um, they just keep in mind that may be the problem of it. Um, Other things can be community property too. My mom one day, well, she lost her wedding ring for one thing. We never did find that. But one day we came in and her dentures were missing. It's like, oh no. She had a special pair of dentures she'd had for a long time. Real nice. She had them reworked a few times, but they had a gold kind of band around one of the front teeth or the second tooth, and it's just something they used to do as 24 karat gold or something or whatever the karat gold would be for that. It just looked nice. It wasn't like a grill or something. It was just a little piece of trim that was gold. And it's just something they did. I don't know. Maybe a 70s thing. Well, one day we showed up and her dentures were missing. We thought, oh crud, someone stole her dentures. Had the gold in it. Some part-time new person came in for, a weekend and in a rush, and they took them or something. Who knows? So we looked for him and we looked for him. Next day came up, she still didn't have him. We looked for him again. Asked the nurses, "You seen him?" "No, I haven't seen any teeth." 4 days later, we came in, and I'll be darned if she'd have her teeth. It's like, oh, sweet. Thought, what in the world? And we went and sit down and ate, and just a typical dinner and got to talking and stuff, and she's a laughing person and a happy person earlier in that, and she gave me a big smile. I looked over and I didn't have the gold ring in it. I thought, what in the world did they steal the ring off of it and then put it back? And I got to looking at it. It wasn't her dentures. She had swiped some else's dentures. She'd probably had those dentures for a day or two. So even dentures can be community property. Anyway, something I was not prepared for. Number four, meds, 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 but no cure. Lots of good meds. You'll have to get used to these, and that's just part of the deal. The ones that have been around a while, Aricept, aka Donepezil, Namenda, aka Memantine. I have an awful time with that one. Memantine. Anyway, two of them have been around for quite a while, and they help with the cognition, sharpness, kind of. They do not extend life. They're just help make things clear. Been around for a while, and they generally well responded to those. Won't cure anything, but might make things easier. But in the last 2 or 3 years, there's two new drugs. There's actually a third that's been obsoleted by these two, Leqembi and Kisunla. It used to be called lecanemab and donanemab. And the MAB at the end of that stands for monoclonal antibody. It's a new class of drugs, not a new class of drugs, but for dementia it is. And does some good stuff. It's designed to push back on the disease a little bit. It's the first disease altering course of the disease altering drugs. They think that it can delay some of the onset by 20-30% of the amount of the time. So mom having it for 15 years, if she would have caught it early enough, which is always required, might very well have gave her an extra 2 or 3 years or four, who knows? Exciting times. There's anxiety meds you'll learn about. Rexulti is a new one that's newly approved for dementia, but there's some other ones too. Um, just always follow up on those. Make sure you know what's going on with them. Um, keep track of them with that list, like I mentioned before. Also about drugs, two more things. Be aware that your friends will forward you every possible cure. They'll tell you about coconut oil. They'll tell you about vitamin B. They'll tell you about some no telling. There's tons of them that people claim, oh, you got to do is take this and it cures dementia. It's not true. It's just not. It's not true. The only thing that those will cure is if you had a deficit in those things, it might fix the deficit. You might not have had the disease maybe, but it's not a cure. I can tell you this without a doubt that it's not a cure by two people's examples. Bruce Willis, amazing actor, was in Die Hard and other movies, Sixth Sense. He was in Friends. Worth $250 million. He has frontotemporal dementia. I was in a webinar with some of his family and some other people in the Alzheimer's Association recently, and he's not doing very well. He just isn't. It's a terrible thing. Frontotemporal dementia. He's not able to talk anymore. Several things going on. Bad situation. Ted Turner created CNN, TBS, Turner Classic. I forget all the different networks. He's worth around 2.5 to maybe up to $3 billion with a B. It's a lot of zeros. Has Lewy body dementia and is declining quick. He's not doing well. If someone were 250 billion and someone or a million and someone were 2.5 billion, with all the staff they have and all the resources and all the people that would love to get a cure to them so that it would just boom. If they were cured, imagine how many things people would buy it if you cured those people. There's not a cure. If they say there's a cure, the only thing you're going to cure is the cure of you having any extra money. I just hate to say it, that's just the case. Number three, 1,000 goodbyes with a side of caregiver guilt. Oh. Okay, so um, every day you grieve a little bit in this whole journey. I had no idea that's how it's going to work. I really didn't. I You grieve when they lose the ability to do something. Mom was a piano player for 60 years, loved to play the piano, and ceased to be able to play it. And it's like a loss. I can remember my childhood hearing her play the piano in the living room while I was sleeping and stuff. It was part of my being is hearing her play the piano, and her losing that was like losing her all over again. Then it'd be good days, things that like you had an encouraging day, and then she'd have a bad day, and that's like, oh, the loss again, another loss, the loss. That's sad. Um, we grieve about all this stuff. You grieve about losing them. You grieve when they pass away, but it's just I don't know how you put it any other way to put it than that. You remember every single bad thing that ever happened, and you feel bad. I should have just like second guessing, and hindsight becomes 2015 at this point. So be prepared for that. Caregiver guilt, such a big part of that. Oh, oh yeah. Um, Focus on good stuff. We'll get to that in a minute. So number two, dementia is a marathon, caregiving is a sprint. Let me tell you a little quick story about Shirley. Shirley was a good friend of mine. Went to Weight Watchers with her. Wonderful lady, wonderful lady. Um, Hardworking lady. Her husband of a long time, 40 or 50 years, if I remember right, unfortunately, sadly, came down with a really ugly combination of Alzheimer's disease and colon cancer with a colostomy bag. So, if you know anything about dementia, which most of you do, you know that's hard to get them to understand and to process and to remember things. Well, you got a big walking, talking announcer thing right hooked to your side there of you should be fiddling with. It's a terrible thing. It just is. It's a terrible story. Um, she was a wonderful caregiver for this gentleman, her husband. In fact, well, she'd always tell us in our Weight Watchers groups. One of the few times she ever get out of her house, was she'd sneak out of our Weight Watchers groups. She told us, "I got 10,000 steps in again today, literally in her living room." It puts me to shame. Circling while he's asleep, walking in the living room, circling his couch. Got 10,000 steps in. So if ever we say, it's too rainy, I can't get in my steps. Well, Shirley got it in. However, she really didn't do anything. Didn't have a network of people that she was prepared to let take care of him because his case was hard. I get it. And so she didn't take very good care of herself during the time that, other than this exercise. I mean, she mental stress, the anxiety, the lack of sleep. There's so many other aspects of health besides just weight, and she's trying to exercise. Um, there's a lot of factors there, and she was not able to take care of any of them very well. He passed away sadly after a strong battle, and she finally, a month or two after he passed away, got around to going to the doctor, and she found out from her doctor that she had a type of cancer that was probably treatable if she would have taken care of it years before. But she was so busy taking care of him. I get that. I feel the same way if I was her. But you got to take care of yourself. If the goal is to be the best caregiver, and I think everyone's goal here is to be the best caregiver you can be, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Um, got to take care of yourself. You got to keep yourself healthy. If you pass away, I mean, you're in a you're in a sprint all the time. They're in a marathon. They're pacing themselves, for lack of a better term. The progression of the disease, is for a lot of people, it might be a stair step, but it's the overall average is just a decline. That's not what it feels like as a caregiver. It isn't. And you got to take care of yourself. You just do. Last one I had is important. It's very, very important. I think that's why I put it last. Every day can have joy. It really can. You might have to have tweezers to find it and to pinch it. See my little tweezers there. You do. You have to find it, and you have to soak it up. Honestly, the temptation with this disease is to dwell on the progression because it gets depressing. It's right in your face all the time. How things are getting a little worse and a little worse and a little worse. Teepa Snow has a really neat video called Gems that talks about progression, and that's what she pushes too, is the fact that you have to find joy and to mind the situation for joy and focus on what's left and not what's on missing. Um, Perfect example of this in my little world. Mom, to the last week she was alive, um, I was able to connect with her usually through music. I'd always come over and hold her hand and visit, and I say visit loosely. I would talk to her, and sometimes she'd give me a smile or this or that. But get my phone out. And I'd play either Alan Jackson playing the old hymns, or I'd play the Gaithers playing the old hymns. And she had what they call Parkinsonism, so her arms would pull up like this, kind of, and she's kind of rigid. And she'd squeeze her hands really, really tight with washcloths in them. It's just the nature of your body really in a bad situation like that, kind of your synapses are firing wrong and all sorts of things going wrong. It just happens a lot of people in that situation. I'd play the old hymns and her arms would drop down a little bit and her shoulders would be a little bit more relaxed and it'd be a connection. And to me, honestly, that was as good as a hug or as anything else. Engage the senses with them if you can. Music is a wonderful way to do that. Sounds, smells, sites, anything that might help a little bit. But focus on the small victories. Don't expect grandiose. Take them to, a spa at the end stage. Focus instead on just getting little glimpses of joy. And soak them up when you get them. Write them down and enjoy every minute of it because they won't be around forever. One little bonus, I got to tell you, and you already know this because you're at this location where we're at today. You're not alone in this deal. If you ever get to go to the walked-in Alzheimer's, they give you little whirlybird flowers. You can see my whirlybird flowers on my wall back behind me. Well, you can't, may not be able to see them in this video. Um, just the whirlybird flowers that blow in the wind. They give you a whirlybird flower based on the color of based on the color of it is based on where you're at with the disease. Like yellow one means you have a loved one with the disease. Purple one means you've lost somebody with the disease. Blue one means you have the disease yourself, and orange one means you're an advocate just for a world without Alzheimer's. Period. I don't necessarily have a direct link today, but you care deeply. Um, when you go to walk-in Alzheimer's, the one I just helped with in Springfield, there was 1,000 people, all with these whirlybirds, and you see through the crowd of people all these flowers of the same color you have, and you realize you're not alone. You have to find a network of people and not be alone. You just can't do it alone. It's not you're not strong enough to do it alone. I'm not either. Family, if you can work your family in, use grace and find ways that can help. Little things that have to. Church family, huge. If you have civic groups, things like that that can help, bowling league, anything like that. If you can find some people who might help. Support groups, Alzheimer's Association facilitates support groups, and so does the area agencies, and so do other groups. I facilitate 6 or 7 of them, I guess. I got one on Zoom too. If it doesn't work to come to one in person, you can do it on Zoom. The Alzheimer's Association 1-800 number can kind of point you toward those. 1-800-272-3900. My cell phone number is 417-955-2513. I never mind giving that out. Call or text me if I can help you find a resource. Be careful. One little thing about Facebook groups, because they can just turn into a big vantathon. More people just, and I understand because it's hard, just ration that, but rally around with other people. You need the other people, they need you. Soak it all up, learn what you can during this time, and just like again, mine every moment for joy. When it's all said and done, you'll at least when until there's a cure, if the person passes away, you at least know at the end that you gave it your all. So, any questions, any ideas, anything that you can think of that would be good for other people to know? I didn't list everything there is to know by any means, obviously. I'm just the things that jump out at me that I did not know immediately. Um, it's something that, and I could have thought of 10 more of them, honestly, or 20 more of them, or 50 more of them. But um, just so you know, too, before I wrap this up, if you want to see more about my journey in this situation, digitalcornbread.com is my blog. You can read all my the last 6 years worth of stuff. I'm not writing as much as I'd like to right now. I've just been super busy, but Mom passed away July 2nd. Amazingly enough, the same day that the second of those drugs I mentioned earlier that's pushing back on the disease, like Sunla, was approved by the FDA. Bittersweet. It's been a journey for sure. It's been worth doing what I could for her. When she passed away, I was sad. I was pre-mourned as much as you can pre-mourn, but at least I didn't regret that I didn't take a shot at doing the best I could. I think that's been a much better situation for me than previous times when my grandmother had the disease. So, if nothing else, I sure appreciate you being here today, and you have a nice day.